Well, we now know it's going to be Chiefs and Texans Saturday, 3:30 ESPN ABC. Going to be airing that game. If you're going out to Arrowhead, the good news is Saturday is going to be much better weather than Sunday is expected to be in this town. Going to be a bit warmer, low 30s versus a high of 20 on Sunday. And I'm telling you what, there's going to be very high demand for tickets, not just because it's a playoff game, but if you go to the game, you can avoid having to listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. So it's a win-win all around. Let's welcome on and say hi to a guy who you hopefully listened to while we took some time off over the Christmas break, and that is Paul Gallant, a host at ESPN Radio in Houston, joining us on KCMO. Paul, how you doing, my friend? I want to thank you on the air for filling in a couple of days over the holidays, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for being back.
I had a blast filling in. Happy New Year, and also thrilled to talk about a playoff game Saturday that, from Houston's perspective, none of us really expected to happen. But here we are, and we get to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure that will go great.
Well, here's the thing, man. Everybody was on the Chargers on Saturday, it seemed like, maybe outside of Houston, but everyone saw the Chargers. They were the favorite on the road. Houston was viewed as a reeling team. What went right for them on Saturday, and how did that carry that over into this week?
Tell you what, everyone in town thought they were dead in the water, too. I called them dead men walking throughout the week. But really what happened was the defense played one of its best games of the year. And if you take a look at this Texans defense and some of the things that they have on their resume in 2024, 2025, they have frustrated some of the best quarterbacks in the game. They made Josh Allen look terrible in a Texans victory over the Bills early in the year. They frustrated Tua Tagovailoa. They gave Jordan Love some issues. This is a team that, when it is on its best defensively, is pretty damn scary because they have a great pass rush that got to Justin Herbert 4 times. They picked him off 4 times. He'd only thrown 3 interceptions all year. Early in this game, it looked like it was going to get away from the Texans, but the defense held firm on a couple of red zone possessions. And then on a play where it looked like things were about to go as disastrously as possible for the Texans, it seemed like C.J. Stroud got his mojo on a play where he dropped the snap, he picked it up, he threw it downfield, and it helped engineer a Texans 99-yard touchdown drive. From that point on, it was very one-sided, Pete.
Yeah, it was. And what about that side of the ball in particular, that offense, do you think can be carried over into Saturday? Or if the Texans were to pull off the upset, it's going to have to be on the backs of the defense?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be on the backs of the defense. I think they're going to need to score a touchdown, which, by the way, they were able to on Saturday. This offense all season long for the Texans has been up and down, inconsistent. A lot of moments where they look really good, but C.J. Stroud's had a lot of weirdly inaccurate moments over the course of this season. There were a couple of interceptions that could have been. One, of course, was taken away by review, but another one where Stroud, I don't know what he was throwing to. It felt like he was trying to throw a pick six early in this game. Against that Chiefs defense, which, and you guys obviously know, is one of the best in the league, I really wonder if they're going to be able to have some of the same success that they had, because this offense seemed to be dead for multiple weeks after, in that Texans-Chiefs game a couple of weeks ago, where C.J. Stroud threw that deep pass to Tank Dell, who suffered that gruesome injury due to friendly fire on that play. Consistency has been basically impossible for the Texans offense all year. They found it in the second half, but really it's going to be a matter of C.J. Stroud throwing to Nico Collins over and over and over again.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. The Tank Dell injury that, of course, was suffered here against the Chiefs in friendly fire back on Christmas Day. What have they done in the passing game to try to make up for not having him around?
That's the problem. There's not really anything they could do. They're trying to make John Mechie a thing, but he had a fumble on the first play of the game for the Texans on Saturday. He dropped the pass over the middle of the field after getting hit. They're really trying their best with a bunch of guys who simply aren't as good as both Stephon Diggs, who's out for the year, and Tank Dell. Really, they're going to need it to be just C.J. Stroud throwing it to Nico Collins over and over again. And here's the thing, Nico Collins is really hard to stop. He's 6'4". He can run past an entire defense. He can run over defenders. He's actually nimble enough to juke around defenders too. He's really good. He's one of the most, I think, underrated receivers in the game. But, I mean, I know that Chiefs defense is going to be focused on him all game long. Who else can step up for the Texans, the passing game? I really don't know.
Paul Gallant is here, ESPN Radio in Houston. He filled in for us, kind enough to do that a couple of weeks ago on KCMO Talk Radio. So, all in all, I mean, you said they were a dead team walking last week. Do you sit here now and say, if things break just right, there's a chance, there's a possibility? Is there some renewed confidence down there in Houston?
There's certainly a lot of confidence now, and the rallying cry this past week was Rex Ryan saying that the Houston Texans were a bye week for the Chargers in the playoffs.
Ow.
And everyone's been talking about him putting his foot in his mouth. And, yeah, insert jokes that you want about Rex Ryan and feet there. But, I mean, ultimately, is Rex Ryan going to go on ESPN and motivate the Texans to go up against one of the best Super Bowl runs that we've seen in quite some time in the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, there's certainly some confidence, but I also think that there is a little bit of fear in the air just because of this. Whenever the Texans get to the second round of the playoffs, they lose. They have yet to make it to an AFC championship game in their franchise history. And while I think people are happy that they're going up against the Chiefs instead of the Ravens, who have outscored them 91-20 the last 3 times they've played Baltimore, I mean, how much confidence can you really have going on the road to Arrowhead Stadium against Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid?
Well, I got to bring it up. 24-0 playoffs in 2019, year 2020, of course, but it was the 2019 season. Texans had a 24-0 lead in that playoff game at Arrowhead. The Chiefs came back to win 51-31. That was the first of this Super Bowl run that they've been on, 3 in the last few years. How much will that come up? I know a lot of the guys are gone from that team, but how much play will that get this week?
Oh, God, you had to rub that one in, too. Look, there's another Chiefs loss, or Texans loss to the Chiefs in the playoffs, too, that I remember back in 2015, where for whatever reason, Texans were on the goal line against the Chiefs, and they decided to put J.J. Watt under center, and they snapped the ball to him. They lost yards. Look, the Chiefs have had the Texans number, but that game, one of the worst in franchise history because there was so much excitement getting that early lead, and then it all evaporated so quickly. There's no Bill O'Brien anymore as head coach. There's no Deshaun Watson, thankfully, anymore as quarterback. But the scars for this team and for this city, going back to when they had a 35-3 lead as the Oilers over the Buffalo Bills in the early 90s in the playoffs. This city is always holding its breath for a football team in town to choke. Thankfully, the Chargers choked this past Saturday a little bit harder.
All right. Paul Gallant, ESPN Houston. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you helping out a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be in touch this week. It's going to be interesting on Saturday. Thanks for being here.
It certainly will be. Thanks, Pete. Anytime.
You bet. Good stuff there out of Paul Gallant on KCMO. Yeah, gosh, that was just the beginning of the end for that franchise under Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson. That's before we knew Deshaun Watson was hitting up every masseuse in town, looking for a little bonus on his massage.
I believe DeAndre Hopkins, former Houston Texan player, Justin Reed ran the fake punt that did not work in that game against the Chiefs. So there's a few players in there.
I'm looking at it right now. You're right. DeAndre Hopkins had 118 receiving yards in that game, that playoff game back in 2020. Justin Reed had a carry for 2 yards in that game as well. So you're right. There are some folks who have gone from one side to the other. All right, 3:30 Saturday afternoon, Arrowhead Stadium. The attempt at a three-peat gets underway.